bill sat there like bait, a single $100 note, perfectly placed on the edge of a polished mahogany desk. The light from the chandelier hit it just right. It almost glowed. Across the room, security cameras blinked red, silent, watching, waiting. And in the corner, arms full of fresh laundry and floor polish, stood a young black woman in a gray uniform, 2 sizes too big and shoes that had seen too many floors. Her name was Lena, and she had no idea she was being watched. But he did. The millionaire, Richard Devereux III, leaned back in his Italian leather chair, sipping imported espresso, eyes glued to the security feed like it was a reality show made just for him. "Let's see what she does," he said with a smirk. A test, that's what he called it. Not a trap, not surveillance. A test of integrity. What he didn't mention was that Lena had just bought him a coffee from the food truck outside with her own money. The intern forgot. The butler refused. So Lena did what no one asked her to. And when she handed it to him, he looked at her like she was invisible and said, "Keep the change," or whatever. There was no change. She covered the last $3 herself. Now, the man who couldn't be bothered to say thank you was watching her every move, waiting for her to stumble, to fail, to prove him right. Lena walked toward the desk, humming under her breath. She hadn't noticed the bill yet. But what happens when someone who already gave more than she had is expected to pass a test she never agreed to? Because this wasn't about honesty. It was about power. And what Lena does next, it won't just change his view of her, it'll change hers of him. The hallway smelled like lemon polish and too many secrets. Lena's cart squeaked as she pushed it through the marble corridor, passing oil paintings older than her grandmother in doorways that led to rooms she wasn't allowed to look inside. She paused at the library door, oak, heavy with a brass lion-shaped handle. Room 314, her least favorite, not because it was hard to clean, but because he was always there. Watching. Lena adjusted her gloves, smoothed her uniform, and walked in. It hit her immediately. The silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that made your heartbeat sound loud. The kind that made you feel like you'd already done something wrong. The room was empty. Or so it seemed. A half-full espresso cup sat on a coaster. A pair of leather shoes, size too big to belong to anyone but him, peeked out from behind the massive bookshelf. She didn't flinch, just started cleaning. And then she saw it. A single crisp $100 bill. Sitting alone. On the edge of the desk. Too perfect. Too placed. Her stomach tightened. Was that there before? She glanced around. The camera above the fireplace was aimed directly at her. A tiny red light blinked. Click. Something inside her locked. She didn't know what this was, but she knew what it felt like. A setup. Still, she kept moving, picking up the duster, wiping surfaces, avoiding the desk like it was on fire. "Ma'am, I asked for espresso. You brought me drip." The voice came from behind the shelf. He wasn't even trying to hide. Lena turned, keeping her hands folded, face calm. "Sir, your assistant said you take drip when you're fasting." He chuckled like that was the punchline. "So the maid takes instructions now?" Fascinating. She nodded slightly, then turned back to work. Her cheeks burned, but her hands didn't shake. Not this time. 3 months ago, she would have cried in the break room after a comment like that. Not today. He stood now. Tall, slim, perfectly tailored. Hair slicked back like a villain in an old movie. "Oh, and keep the change from earlier. For your effort." That word. Effort. Like she was pretending to be useful. Like her 12-hour shift was just cosplay for poverty. Lena swallowed it down. "That's kind of you," she said. She didn't mention that she'd already spent 3 of her own dollars so he could have his overpriced, foamless oat milk brew with that little cinnamon sprinkle he always forgot to thank her for. She didn't say she skipped her own coffee that morning, or that her son asked for pancakes and she gave him toast because she didn't want to be late. Because it wasn't about coffee, it was about who gets to test who. Later, in the staff locker room, whispers flew like static. He did it again. "Put the money out?" "Yeah, she didn't touch it." Lena stared at her reflection, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Her uniform was still damp at the waist. Sweat or bleach, she couldn't tell. Behind her, two housekeepers giggled. "I would have taken it," one of them said. "Girl, same. One bill ain't gonna break him." But it would break her. That's the difference. She walked out before they could see her eyes. In the hallway, she passed the butler, Mr. Clive, who gave her a slow nod and said without smiling, "He's watching, you know." Lena stopped. Watching what? He didn't answer, just kept walking, hands clasped behind his back like some kind of chess piece. That night, Lena sat in her tiny apartment, her son asleep on the couch, a cartoon still flickering silently on the screen. She opened her bag. There, crumpled in a napkin from the food truck, were the $3 she never got back. She stared at them for a long time, like they meant something. And maybe they did. The next morning, room 314 was waiting. The brass lion on the library door looked more smug than usual, like it knew something she didn't. Lena took a breath and stepped inside. Same polished floor, same silence. But something had changed. The desk, that massive mahogany beast, was cleared except for two things: a bouquet of fresh peonies in a crystal vase, and another crisp $100 bill folded neatly in half right in front of them. No coffee today, no clutter, no accident. This time, it was intentional. Lena blinked. Not at the money, not even at the flowers, at the vase. Because peonies? Those weren't random. That was her mother's favorite flower. She had mentioned it once in passing weeks ago while dusting the foyer. Richard Devereaux had been walking by, phone in hand. She didn't think he was listening. Apparently he was. A chill crawled up her spine. What was this? A mind game? A flirtation? A slow-moving trap? Her fingers hovered over her apron pocket, where she always kept a small notepad. Her hands trembled now, just slightly, enough to notice. Then she heard it, the faintest sound. Not footsteps, not talking. Click. That same blinking red light. But this time there were two cameras. One high in the bookshelf, another hidden in the molding. He had doubled surveillance and still hadn't said a word. She moved slowly like walking underwater, sprayed the polish. Wiped, avoided the desk. The money stayed untouched, but then the door creaked open, and he stepped in. Richard Devereaux III in a gray three-piece suit, tie loosened just enough to say, "I don't need this meeting, but I'll take it anyway." One hand in his pocket, the other swirling a glass of scotch. At 9:32 a.m. Still can't bring yourself to take it, huh? Lena didn't answer, didn't flinch, just kept wiping the shelves. "You know, most people would have slipped it right into their apron by now," he continued. "No one would have blamed you." "I don't need it," she said flat. "Everyone needs something," he smiled. "I'm just curious what yours is." There it was again. That tone. Like this was entertainment. Like she was a lab rat in a maze of luxury, and he was feeding her breadcrumbs to see what she'd do. "If you're trying to make a point, sir," she said without turning around, "you should just say it." He walked closer. His shoes clicked against the marble like punctuation marks. "My point is this," he said, now behind her. "People are only honest until they're offered the right amount." She turned, slowly, looked him right in the eye. And people only test others when they're afraid to look at themselves. A pause, he smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. "I admire your control," he said. "But just so we're clear, this is still my house, my rules." She nodded once, understood, and walked out, leaving the $100, the peonies, and the tension right where it was. That afternoon she was called into the office. Not Richard's, Clive's. The butler sat behind a desk that looked like it hadn't moved in 20 years. Papers stacked neatly. A single clock ticking too loud for comfort. He didn't offer her a seat. "Miss Carter," he began, "it seems there's been some concern about your presence in the library." She raised an eyebrow. "Concern?" "A pattern. You've lingered longer than scheduled. There was a financial item left in plain sight. It has since been moved." "I didn't touch it." There's no accusation, he said flatly, but Mr. Devereaux believes certain boundaries have blurred. I'm doing my job. Clive folded his hands, looked at her like a school principal about to give detention. Be careful where you walk, he said. Not every space is made for everyone. She stood there, silent. She wasn't going to cry, she wasn't going to give them that, but her jaw clenched so tight it ached. Back in the locker room, her phone buzzed, a text from her sister. Rent's going up $80 more, can you help? Lena stared at the message, then looked at her hands, red from bleach, calloused from work. That bill was still in the library. Unclaimed. And now? Now she was being accused of everything except taking it. It didn't matter what she did. They weren't testing her honesty. They were trying to break her. The next day, Lena didn't walk into room 314 like a maid. She walked in like a woman who'd had enough. Her uniform was pressed sharper than usual, shoes polished, her name tag pinned straight, not crooked like yesterday. Her hair pulled back tight, not for neatness, for focus. No cart, no mop. Just a clipboard and a rag folded square in her hand. She looked like a storm wrapped in protocol. And room 314? It was waiting. This time the setup was even worse. The money was gone, but in its place, a bracelet. Gold. Heavy. Sitting on a silk cloth next to an open jewelry box, as if someone forgot to put it away. The security light blinked, still recording. She heard a quiet chuckle, the same one as always. Hidden, watching. If she steals, she's gone. That's what he said. But Lena realized something. He didn't want her to steal. He wanted her to feel small. And that's when she made her decision. She picked up the rag and ignored the bracelet. Instead, she walked over to the bookshelf. Top shelf, far left. An old photo frame covered in dust. She'd seen it before but never touched it. But today she did. She wiped the glass clean, revealed the image behind it. It was Richard. Maybe 25. Smiling. Arms around a black woman in a nurse's uniform. She looked like Lena. Too much like Lena. Same skin tone, same sharp cheekbones, even the same tired but hopeful eyes. Suddenly, the door creaked open. Richard froze in the doorway. You weren't assigned this side of the room today. Just thought it deserved cleaning, she said without turning. That photo's not part of the decor. I figured, she said, quiet. But it's the only real thing in here. She turned now, holding the frame, staring right at him. Who is she? Silence. Your maid? She asked. Nurse? Mother of someone. Still silence. She placed the frame gently on the desk. I didn't come here to pass your tests, she said, but maybe you need to pass your own. He looked shaken for the first time. Really shaken. The kind of shake that doesn't start in the hands. It starts behind the eyes. You can go, he muttered. Not yet, she said. I left something here. And with that, she reached into her apron and pulled out the $3 she'd paid for his coffee. She placed them beside the gold bracelet. Here's your change. Then turned around and walked out. No raised voice, no breaking things, no theft, no apology. Just truth. Quiet and sharp like glass. Outside room 314, Lena finally exhaled. Her hands still trembled, but not from fear this time. From release. In the hall, Mr. Clive stood watching, as if he'd been waiting. You done? He asked. She nodded. He'll call you again, Clive said. I won't answer, she replied. Clive gave the smallest smile she'd ever seen on him. Good. In the staff lounge, the other maids whispered, What happened? Did she get fired? Did she take the bracelet? No, she took something else. And that's when it hit them. She didn't take his money or his jewelry. She took his silence and filled it with something louder than anything money could buy. She made him look, and that broke him more than theft ever could. Room 314 remained untouched for days. The flowers wilted. The bracelet was gone, likely locked away. The cameras kept blinking, but there was nothing left to catch. Richard Devereaux didn't show up for his usual morning coffee or his meetings, or the Friday estate review where he typically tore through line items like a man allergic to accountability. Instead, the staff whispered about the door that stayed closed and the maid who wouldn't come back. Lena took shifts in other rooms, bathrooms, bedrooms, even the linen closets, anywhere but that room. She didn't speak much, didn't need to. People had seen the way she walked out that day. Shoulders back, face calm, the sound of $3 hitting mahogany like a gavel. It echoed longer than anyone expected. Monday morning, a week later, the butler found her. "Miss Carter," Clive said, voice even. "Mr. Devereaux asked to see you." Lena didn't even look up from folding towels. "I'm not interested." He insisted. I didn't stutter. He said it's about the woman in the photo. That made her stop. She turned slowly, eyes narrowing. "He's ready to say her name?" Clive hesitated. "I believe he's ready to hear someone else say it." Room 314 felt colder now. The lights were dimmed, the bracelet gone, the vase empty. But the photo? It had been moved. Centered on the desk, clean, lit. Richard sat behind it, not with arrogance, but with something else. Maybe fatigue, maybe guilt, maybe something he hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty. Lena stepped in, arms folded. He didn't stand. He didn't smirk. He simply said, "Her name was Regina." Lena nodded. "She looks like she mattered." She did more than I ever admitted. He picked up the photo, looked at it like a man remembering how to grieve. "She raised me. My father paid her like furniture, but she was everything. She taught me to tie my shoes, how to say please, how to survive." "So you honored her by testing women like her?" He flinched at that. Deserved it. "I don't know why I did it," he said. Power, pride. Maybe I wanted to prove nobody could be like her, that no one deserved that kind of love. "You were wrong." Silence. Lena stepped forward. "You tested me with money, then with silence. But what really scared you was that I saw through both." "You did." She looked around. "And now what? You want to thank you for finally realizing I'm a person?" He shook his head. "No, I want to listen." That was the first honest thing he'd said. Lena considered walking out, but instead, she sat across from him, in the same chair where assistants used to deliver reports, where nobody who wore a name tag had ever been allowed to sit. "Then start by listening to this," she said. "The people who clean your house, raise your kids, fix your coffee, they're not just service. They're human. They're tired. They remember every comment, every test, every look. We carry it all, just to survive the next paycheck. And the worst part?" She leaned forward. "You don't even notice until one of us holds up a mirror." That afternoon, a memo went out to the staff. No more surveillance without consent. No more tests. And the library closed indefinitely. The photo of Regina was moved to the foyer. Underneath it, a plaque. "In memory of the one who truly raised this house." Lena didn't return to room 314. She didn't need to. But the next paycheck came with something extra. Not money, not flowers, not gold. A handwritten note. "I never said thank you. I was afraid you'd never forgive me. Now I'm just afraid you were never the one who needed to." Lena folded it, placed it in her apron pocket, and went back to work. Same halls, same job. But something was different. Not the house. Her. She no longer walked like someone who could be tested. She walked like someone who had already passed.